The Last of Us on HBO so far has been great, for the most part. So here's my thoughts on the 8 episodes out so far. This one improves on the game right out of the gate. One thing that the show did change from the game for the better was the little cold opens that we get to way before the outbreak even happened. Like in episode 1, we get a talk show host who's talking about the cordyceps virus. After this, we cut to Joel and Sarah, and we see how normal life was before Outbreak Day. Other than that, the beginning is basically the exact same as the game. After Sarah dies, we cut to 20 years later, where we see basically the new normal for Joel, which also shows us how bad Fedra is running the town. We also meet a soldier named Lee. He sets up that Joel wants a vehicle, and that's about all he does. We also meet Tess, who's being held in a basement by Robert. Later, Tess escapes and then surrenders to Fedra. We then meet Ellie, who is chained to a wall. Later, Joel and Tess meet up, and then she tells him that Robert has sold their car battery that they need. So Joel and Tess go out to get said battery. We cut back to Ellie, and yeah, this part didn't really do much for me. We cut back to Joel and Tess, who have found the battery, but is apparently non-functional. So after Joel and Marlene hash things out, Joel agrees to smuggle Ellie back to a safe house. Joel and Tess say they should go to Bill and Frank's place. Once they get outside, they have an altercation with Lee. They kill him and take his assault rifle, and then the episode ends. This episode was pretty decent. It did a great job at adding its own ideas. The only con to this episode I can really think of is, well, the runtime. Other than that, it was a great episode. So the gang make it into a hotel, and then they go into a museum, and then they go into the Capitol building. They then kill off Tess in the worst way possible. So after Tess kills the remaining infected, Joel and Ellie just keep on walking to Bill and Frank's. It's a bit of a drop-off from the first episode, but it was just kind of fine.
And this is not an Arby's.
Episode 3 starts out with Joel and Ellie. They just kind of talk about what happened on Outbreak Day for a bit, and then we get to the good part, where you just see Bill and Frank grow old together. So after we see Bill and Frank die, Joel and Ellie show up. They find out Bill and Frank are dead, so they grab the supplies that Bill left out for them. They take his truck and then they drive off. This episode was genuinely great. The Bill and Frank scenes were the best part of the episode. But I've really been enjoying the show so far.
Why are all these pages stuck together?
This episode starts out with Joel and Ellie on the road, and then the rest of it is just that scene where they crash the truck. After that, they go to sleep and meet Sam and Henry. This episode was just kind of alright. It was basic, but I enjoyed it decently enough. In episode 5, we get to learn more about Henry and Sam. Like, the beginning scene with them just hiding in the attic was probably the best part of this episode. Joel and Henry then come up with a plan to get out of the city. Later, they're ambushed by a sniper, and then the main villain for the episode shows up. Now, she's shown up earlier in the episode, but I just don't care about her that much. Then a horde of infected show up, so Joel and his crew get out of there. We then see that Sam got bit, and then Henry kills himself. This episode was pretty good. Didn't care for Kathleen at all, but the Sam and Henry stuff makes up for it.
You made him soup?
Yeah, I did. It's cold out.
So Joel and Ellie make it to Tommy. They just sit around for an hour, and then Joel gets stabbed. And then he and Ellie go off. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this episode.
Oh, no, no, no!
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah!
This episode is really bad too. It's just the first game's DLC, but worse. Let's see if episode 8 gets any better.
Don't you not fall asleep.
It does get better. Kind of. So instead of Carver just being a cannibal, he's also...
Thought you already knew. The fighting is the part I like the most.
I'm not sure why they felt the need to do that, but they did. Other than the episode being really uncomfortable, it's also just kind of mid. And And that's The Last of Us so far. I am really hoping that the last episode is at least decent. But I know what they're probably gonna do. Joel and Ellie look at the giraffes for like 5 minutes, and then Abby shows up in the hospital. Joel and her meet, and then she sees that Joel killed her dad, and then goes on a tangent about getting revenge. But that's just me assuming the worst. And that's about it. I will see y'all after the finale. See ya.